They thought my off-grid house was abandoned. They thought a clipboard gave them authority. And they thought breaking my gate was a harmless HOA inspection. What they didn't know, former Marines were inside, cameras were rolling, and one bad decision was about to destroy their entire HOA. The morning started like most Saturdays out here, quiet, deliberate, and exactly the way I like it. Coffee sat steaming in a stainless steel thermos wedged into the cup holder. The checklist on my dashboard rattled slightly as my truck rolled down Highway 17, tires humming against the pavement like white noise for the soul. I had a simple supply run planned: generator parts, .308 ammo, fuel stabilizer, and maybe a detour that kept me away from civilization a little longer than necessary. Living off-grid does that to you. Once you taste silence, fluorescent lights and HOA newsletters feel like personal attacks. Back at the property, my place was in good hands. Better than good, actually. Miles, Travis, and Kowalski were holding down the fort, 3 former Marines I'd served with overseas. Iraq wasn't something we talked about much anymore, but it had welded us together in ways normal friendships never could. These were the men you trusted with your life, your land, and your six when things went sideways. I'd invited them up for the weekend. Beers. Barbecue. Sometime at the range. No stress. No schedules. That was the plan. At 10:10 a.m., somewhere between the ammo depot and a hardware store that smelled like cedar-scented marketing lies, my phone vibrated. At first, I ignored it. Then it vibrated again. And again. I glanced down. Perimeter alert. Front gate, lock disengaged. No access code used. I frowned and slowed the truck. That lock was industrial grade. It didn't disengage. It either opened with the correct code, or it was destroyed. I tapped into the security app. The main gate camera should have been streaming live. Instead, the screen flickered black. Then froze. My gut tightened. A second alert popped up, side camera near the bend in the road. The feed was grainy, but clear enough to make my jaw clench. 3 people. 2 men. 1 woman. All wearing matching polo shirts embroidered with a logo I recognized instantly. Emerald Canyon Estates HOA. They stepped over what was left of my padlock like it was trash. The woman walked in front, confident, smug, holding a silver tablet like a badge of authority. I knew her. Karen Lewis. Self-appointed HOA president. Queen of clipboard tyranny. The kind of person who believed rules existed to be enforced by her, exclusively. Her voice came through the audio feed sharp and unfiltered. He was instructed to vacate today. We've received complaints. We have authority to conduct a wellness inspection. I nearly choked on my coffee. I wasn't part of their HOA. Never had been. Never would be. My land was legally excluded, grandfathered out with documentation thicker than a phone book. County records. Surveyor stamps. Zoning affidavits. I'd handed Karen copies myself 2 years ago when she tried to find me for painting my own mailbox. And now she was cutting my lock. Walking onto 9 acres of clearly posted private property. Without a warrant. Without law enforcement. Without permission. I immediately opened the secure radio channel to the house. Miles answered on the first click. Yeah, he said calmly. We've got company. How many? 3. HOA. A pause. Then, faint amusement. You armed? Kowalski's cleaning his rifle in the kitchen, Miles replied. Travis is upstairs with a GoPro and binoculars. We're watching. Do not engage unless they try to enter, I said. I'm heading back. Call the sheriff. Already done, Miles said. You want me to make coffee? I ended the call. My hands were steady, but my thoughts were not. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was calculated. They'd chosen the one day I was gone. They knew my property was off-grid, defensible, and monitored. And they still walked in like they owned the place. I flipped the truck around on the shoulder and floored it, gravel spraying as I tore back toward the house. Back at the property, the Marines were already moving. Travis had locked the front door and posted up in the upstairs hallway, binoculars pressed to his eyes, camera rolling. Kowalski stood just inside the back entrance, rifle cradled, not aimed, not hidden. Just present. Unmistakable. Miles leaned against the kitchen counter, sipping coffee like it was any other morning. The first knock wasn't a knock. It was a shove. Then another. Then the unmistakable sound of the back door handle turning. Karen's voice followed, loud and rehearsed. "Hello. HOA inspection. We just need a moment of your time." They waited maybe 3 seconds. Then the handle rattled harder. Kowalski stepped forward and cracked the door open an inch. Enough to see. Not enough to invite. Karen froze. Her eyes traveled from Kowalski's frame to the matte black rifle resting against his chest. The smile vanished. "Ma'am," Kowalski said evenly, voice calm and absolute. "This is private property. You broke in. Step back off the stoop." One of her companions, short, thick-necked, took a step forward. "Whoa, whoa," he snapped. "You threatening us with a gun? That's assault. We'll call the cops." Travis's voice echoed from upstairs. "Already did. Sheriff's on the way. Reported 3 intruders, property damage, and attempted unlawful entry." Karen blinked rapidly, recalculating. "This is a scheduled compliance audit," she insisted. Section 9.4 allows emergency inspections. Miles stepped into view. "This isn't HOA property," he said casually. "You're trespassing. Want to see the boundary markers? We've got 5. Karen shook her head, denial doing what it always does when facts get inconvenient. "We were told this lot is within the extended HOA overlay." Travis laughed. "Lady, you're not the FBI. You don't get to raid houses over fence posts." That's when it happened. The taller HOA officer lunged forward and shoved Kowalski's arm. Bad move. In one fluid motion, Kowalski twisted his wrist, pivoted, and drove him chest first into the deck. The man hit hard, air blasting out of his lungs. Zip ties came out. Wrists bound. Karen screamed. "You can't do that. That's illegal." Miles stepped between her and the door, badge in hand. "You entered illegally," he said. "You damaged property. And your associate made physical contact inside a restricted area. This is a lawful citizen's arrest." Karen backed up, trembling now. "You're going to regret this," she hissed. "You don't know who you're messing with." Miles didn't raise his voice. "No," he said. "That's what you said to the wrong house." 10 minutes later, gravel crunched under tires. 2 sheriff's cruisers rolled into the driveway, lights spinning slow and cautious. I arrived moments after, stepping out of my truck as Sheriff Glenn McCall emerged from the lead vehicle. He looked from me, to the porch, to the zip-tied HOA officer. "Ryan," he said. "What the hell is this?" I exhaled slowly. "A constitutional disaster," I replied. "And it started when they cut my lock." Karen opened her mouth. The story was just beginning. For about 12 hours, I thought it was over. That's how long the quiet lasted. The sheriff hauled Karen Lewis and her 2 HOA enforcers off my property just after noon. The broken lock was bagged as evidence. Statements were taken. Copies of the footage were logged. Sheriff McCall gave me a look that said this isn't going away, but even then, I underestimated how far Karen was willing to go. By Sunday evening, the Marines had gone home. The house settled back into its usual rhythm, wind through the trees, generator hum, the kind of silence you earn by living far enough away from people who think rules are a personality trait. Monday morning, I found the letter. Certified mail. Hand-delivered. The carrier didn't make eye contact. Just handed it over like it might explode. The return address read, Emerald Canyon Estates Compliance Committee. I laughed at first. That laugh didn't last long. Inside was a 4-page notice titled Formal Summons for Compliance Review. It accused me of multiple violations: improper storage of hazardous materials, unauthorized perimeter fortifications, unlicensed surveillance equipment, and activities inconsistent with community safety standards. Community. I wasn't part of their community. Attached was a packet of low-resolution photos. My house. My generator. My greenhouse. My roof. One photo, taken at night, showed my chimney circled in red and labeled Unknown Device. I stared at the pages for a long time. This wasn't retaliation. This was strategy. I called my lawyer. He laughed when I emailed him the packet. Then he stopped laughing. They're building a paper trail, he said. If no one challenges it, it becomes their version of reality. That's when something clicked. Karen hadn't improvised that inspection. She'd prepared for it. Those photos weren't taken in a day. Some of them were months old. Different seasons. Different angles. Meaning she'd been watching. And if she'd done it to me, she'd done it to others. I started making calls. 3 hours later, I was on the phone with Tony Barron, a retired engineer who owned a wooded lot 2 miles north of me. He'd received a similar compliance notice 6 months earlier and ignored it. 2 weeks later, he found a citation nailed to a tree on his property. No signature. No contact number. Just a fine and a deadline. I thought it was a prank, Tony told me. Then the letters started. Warnings. Threats. Claims that his power could be cut off. He was completely off-grid. Next was Dana Price. Karen had shown up on Dana's porch last fall with 2 clipboard-carrying men and told her she had 48 hours to remove non-compliant fencing. Dana refused. 2 nights later, someone cut a 20-foot gap in her fence. She joined the HOA just to make it stop. By the time I hung up, my stomach was tight. This wasn't enforcement. It was coercion. Then came the detail that turned suspicion into certainty. One of the complaints against me, the one Karen referenced during the inspection, was allegedly filed by a neighbor named Margaret Dean. Margaret Dean had been dead for nearly 3 years. I confirmed it through county records. Same name. Same address. Time of death, April 2022. Complaint date, 2 weeks ago. I requested a copy of the original complaint from the HOA. They denied it. Claimed it was digitally compiled and confidential. That told me everything. I compiled a dossier. Every notice. Every photo. Every statement from Tony and Dana. Parcel maps. Zoning records. Security footage. The dead woman's death certificate. I walked it into the sheriff's office. Sheriff McCall flipped through the pages slowly. When he reached the forged complaint, he stopped. I was at her funeral, he muttered. Then he looked up at me. This isn't just overreach, he said. This is fraud. That was the moment the tone changed. Within 48 hours, the district attorney's office was involved. A senior investigator named Lee Sandoval took the case. She didn't waste time. This checks out, she told me over the phone. If we can establish a pattern, this becomes criminal conspiracy. Karen didn't wait. Before the county could make a move, Emerald Canyon Estates went into full damage control mode. Their website vanished overnight. The HOA Facebook group went private. The community bulletin board, once plastered with Karen's weekly compliance reminders, was stripped bare. Then came the mass mailing. 4 glossy pages titled Clarification regarding recent misinformation. They blamed disinformation campaigns. Denied unlawful entry. Claimed everything was exaggerated by individuals seeking notoriety. They didn't mention the broken lock. They didn't mention the video. They didn't mention the dead woman. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was Marcus Dell, former junior board member. Resigned 6 months earlier. I should have called sooner, he said quietly. But I didn't think she'd go this far. Marcus told me about shadow meetings. About fake complaints. About Karen's favorite phrase. Fear is cheaper than lawsuits. He had emails. Recordings. Meeting notes. And then he dropped the bomb. They're shredding documents, he said. Friday. Quietly. No notice. I made 2 calls. One to Sheriff McCall. One to Lee Sandoval. Both told me the same thing. Stall them. Friday morning, I parked on a public access road overlooking the HOA maintenance yard. There it was. A bright red industrial shredding truck. Boxes stacked beside it. Banker boxes. Unlabeled. One tipped over as it was lifted. Paper spilled out. HOA letterhead. Meeting minutes. Financial ledgers. I took photos. Called Lee. Hold position, she said. We're on the way. 10 minutes later, county SUVs rolled in. The shredder stopped mid-cycle. Deputies surrounded the yard. One man claimed he was just a contractor. He was holding a folder labeled HOA, March 2023. Evidence was seized. Boxes were sealed. Names were taken. By that evening, the county issued a public statement. An investigation was underway. Multiple HOA board members were now persons of interest. Karen Lewis disappeared. No statements. No appearances. Rumor said she'd left town. Then came the final piece. The hard drive. When Karen's crew broke into my house, Travis had activated a secondary interior camera. It captured audio Karen never knew existed. Her voice. Clear as day. Pointing at my gun cabinet. Let's mark this for removal, she said. That can be our first violation. I copied the footage onto 3 drives. Hand-delivered one to Lee Sandoval. She listened without blinking. This helps, she said quietly. Tuesday morning, my phone lit up. 3 messages. Marcus, they got her. Lee, Karen Lewis in custody. Warrants executed. A neighbor, a blurry photo of Karen in cuffs. The performance was over. But the fallout had only begun. And what they found inside Karen's HOA office would bring everything crashing down. I didn't feel victorious when I saw the photo. Karen Lewis stood in the driveway of her own home, hands cuffed behind her back, flanked by 2 plainclothes deputies. No sunglasses. No clipboard. No performance. Just a hollow stare, like someone who'd finally realized the rules she invented didn't apply to reality. That image spread fast. By noon, the sheriff's office had executed search warrants on what used to be Emerald Canyon Estate's administrative office. Turns out, it wasn't an office at all. It was a converted guest house behind Karen's property. Inside, deputies found what Karen had been hiding for years. File boxes stacked to the ceiling. External hard drives. A private server rack humming quietly in the corner like it had something to confess. Surveillance footage cataloged by address. Photos of homes, some inside the HOA, many outside, tagged with notes like resistant, won't cooperate, and pressure harder. My address had its own folder. Dana's. Tony's. At least a dozen others. But the real bombshell came from the financials. HOA funds, money collected from dues, had been quietly routed to a private security contractor that no longer existed. The paper trail led straight to a shell corporation registered under the name of Karen's brother-in-law. That's when conspiracy became fact. By the next morning, Susan Frazier was arrested outside her yoga studio. Mike Dalton turned himself in later that afternoon, escorted by a lawyer who looked like he hadn't slept. Subpoenas went out to the rest of the board. Some denied everything. One didn't. He cracked during questioning and confirmed what Marcus had already told us. Karen ran shadow meetings. Enforcement strategies. Target lists. A phrase she loved using when discussing non-HOA properties. Soft entry. It showed up everywhere after that. In the media. In court filings. In transcripts. The county froze every HOA account. Landscaping stopped. Trash pickup halted. Residents panicked. Phones rang nonstop. People wanted answers. I gave them the truth. It's already over. The zoning board hearing came a week later. This wasn't a church basement meeting with folding chairs. This was a formal county session, press cameras, elected officials, attorneys on both sides. Karen showed up in a white blazer and oversized sunglasses, flanked by 2 defense lawyers. She didn't look at me. Didn't need to. I took the stand and walked them through everything. The lock. The footage. The fake complaints. The dead woman's name. I played the audio of Karen ordering inspections she had no authority to conduct. I submitted maps proving my land was never part of her HOA. I showed how enforcement notices were fabricated to create the illusion of jurisdiction. Her lawyers objected. The board didn't buy it. Then Marcus Dell stepped forward. Former board member. Whistleblower. He brought emails. Meeting notes. Voice recordings. One clip echoed through the room. If we pressure them just enough, Karen's voice said calmly, they'll cave and sign. Fear is cheaper than lawsuits. Silence followed. The board chair thanked Marcus. Then she turned to Karen and her attorneys. The county was launching a joint investigation: fraud, misuse of funds, harassment, civil rights violations. Karen stood up and walked out without a word. Outside, reporters swarmed. One shoved a microphone toward me. What would you say to homeowners dealing with HOA overreach? I didn't hesitate. Know your land. Know your rights. And if someone cuts your lock and walks in like they own the place, don't argue. Document. Let the law do its job. The fallout hit fast. Within 72 hours, Emerald Canyon Estates HOA effectively collapsed. Their website stayed offline. The Facebook group imploded. Neighbors turned on each other. Lawsuits flew over dues, contracts, and responsibility. Then came the civil suit. The district attorney sought restitution for affected homeowners. Damages climbed into 7 figures. I was named lead complainant. My lawyer filed our independent claim the next morning: malicious trespass, property damage, harassment, defamation, attempted jurisdictional fraud. The board's insurers refused coverage. Personal liability. That's when the pleas started. Karen never spoke publicly again. At arraignment, she stood silently as charges were read: fraud, conspiracy, impersonation, obstruction of justice. She was sentenced to 12 years. 8 without parole. Susan took 6. Mike took 4. Restitution totaled $13 million. The county announced a statewide task force to investigate HOA misconduct. That part felt good. A month later, I stood at my gate watching a crew install a new lock. Titanium. Laser cut. Tamper-resistant. Rated stronger than most police battering rams. I had it engraved. Private property, Marines inside, try again. No one ever did. The neighborhood changed after that. Without Karen, Emerald Canyon didn't just fall, it imploded. People who'd once defended her suddenly claimed ignorance. Some said apologies. A few handwritten. Awkward. Genuine. Dana started a blog documenting HOA abuse nationwide. Tony announced a run for city council. The Marines came back one last time, not to guard the house, but to grill steaks and drink bourbon on the roof as the sun dropped behind the trees. For the first time in months, the land felt quiet again. I didn't keep all the money. I paid off the mortgage, upgraded security, reinforced the bunker. The rest went into something better. A nonprofit. Free legal aid for homeowners bullied by HOAs. We called it Landline. A hotline. Volunteer lawyers. Former officers. Quiet guidance. Real strategy. Helping people fight back the right way. I never went looking for war. But when it came, cutting locks, pretending authority, walking into my home, I answered on my terms. The Constitution doesn't start with an HOA charter. It starts with we the people. And this time, the people won.